Now, the reason I found this video interesting with Dr. Boyce Watkins and Anton Daniels is because I listen to both people. I used to listen to a lot of Boyce Watkins, and I just recently discovered Anton Daniels. So like I thought the beef about this was pretty interesting because I'm like, I listen to both people, so therefore I'm not really far on one and I'm not far on the other one. I just believe that both of them are providing value, and at the time, what he was saying made sense, and at the time, what Anton was saying made sense. So I gravitated towards both of their content. So the issue at hand, I guess Anton doesn't like the information that Boyce Watkins has been putting out, and Boyce Watkins is more on the side of like these black gurus, red pill guys that giving bad advice for the black community. But I also have views on both sides. Like, yeah, some of these guys are giving bad advice for our people, but it all depends who's it's coming from. So I'm curious to see what this is about.
Well, my name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and today I want to talk a little bit about an interesting guy on the internet and named Anton Daniels. I don't know him. He looks a little bit like Rick Ross's cross-eyed brother or something. I have no idea. But anyway, he loves to join in the chorus of these really disgruntled black men that give this crazy, horrible advice on the internet. And what I want to do is kind of put it into context. I'm a little bit older than him, so maybe a little bit wiser, maybe not. But I'm going to give you another perspective that I hope you'll consider. And so get comfortable, buckle up, seatbelt. We're going to get started on drboycetv.com right now. Was brought to my attention that I thought was really interesting. And it has to do with this guy. There's a guy named Anton Daniels that gives interesting perspectives on a lot of different issues. And he mostly talks about women. There's a lot of, I don't understand men who talk about women all day long, but this is what he does. And he kind of is part of what I would consider to be this tribe of men who apparently maybe they're very hurt. Maybe women make them sad. I have no idea. But some of the conversation is a little bit disturbing in the sense that it's not a reflection of what is going to create a healthy, prosperous black community. It's a lot of conversation about, single mothers and all this other stuff, which I don't understand at all. But he did a video and he mentioned me today. And so I thought that I would kind of give an appropriate response to it in terms of kind of giving you an honest perspective on. I even shared this video on my Instagram. My Instagram's Dr. Boyce Finance, and I'm actually going to try to share my screen. And I want you guys to watch this, and then I'll give you my take on some of this. So give me 1 second here. I'm gonna pull this up. Let me know if you can hear. Let me know if you can hear this video. I'm gonna play it right now.
Be in the presence of a woman that's tainted. You don't have a chance because he already had you. Listen, if it's that easy for me to get it, I don't feel that special because he hit it and he hit it and Dreadhead hit it and Umar hit it. Boyce didn't hit it. Boyce didn't hit it. He didn't have a chance. We ain't worried about Boyce. And the favorite football player hit it and the basketball player hit it and the homie from the hood hit it and they ran a train on you before that and then you had a kid by him and you had a kid by him and you had a kid by him and then for some reason you think you're supposed to be sitting in the presence of kings. Since when did that happen? How is it that we started qualifying ourselves for people that we don't even qualify to sit in front of? And then they want you to be a step crash dummy. I just got a quick question, ladies. What qualifies you?
Okay, so let me stop there because he gave us so much good stuff. I think that there's a lot to kind of respond to here. By the way, let me know, can you guys hear that? Were you able to hear the video? And his name's Anton Daniels, and he's entertaining. He's very entertaining. Sometimes he sounds intelligent. Sometimes he sounds a little clownish. But, that's what the internet's all about. That's what YouTube's all about. That's how you get a lot of subscribers and stuff like that, because we have a lot of clowns in our community. I'm not going to say he's a complete clown. I would say that he's young. I think he's a few years younger than me. And he's very obsessed with me. He's really interested in my personal life, which I always found that really fascinating. There's no black man I can think of anywhere that I've been that obsessed with where I talk about that person a lot, but apparently he's talked about me a lot, and typically I don't really address it much, but this time I wanted to address it because I do think that there is something that's happening here that the community needs to pay attention to. So let's start here. First of all, he says, he's talking about, I guess, some stank asshole, some nasty ass woman who slept with everybody that moves, and he's like, Umar hit it, the homie from the hood hit it, the basketball player hit it, Boyce didn't hit it. We ain't worried about Boyce. Boyce didn't hit it. And I'm like, you're goddamn right, Boyce didn't hit it. Boyce don't hang out with low quality women. That's not of interest to me. And Boyce learned from my father a long time ago that that black men, if you're dumb enough to think that you're supposed to sleep with every pretty girl that walks by you. You a sucker, man. You're stupid. That's the dumbest thing you can ever do. A lot of these women might have diseases. STDs are a big thing. We don't talk about it enough in the community. Think about how many men you know who slept with hundreds, maybe thousands of women, and they consider that a source of pride. I'm the man. I'm the man. Look at me. Look at how many women I slept with. Bro, have you been to the clinic lately? And do you understand how many STDs are being spread in the community by men like you? Seriously, this is grown man talk. This is not something that that immature, childish people are going to get. The clowns are not going to get this. It's only going to make the clowns angry. I'm sure. I can't wait to see their video responses. I'm sure they're going to say lots of, lots of mean things or whatever. That's fine. I can handle it. But the point of the matter is that you don't understand that from slavery, you were raised with that slave buck mentality. Anybody, give me a yes if you heard about the slave breeding plantations. Anybody know about the history of slaves being bred, where they would have one guy who would sit and have sex with 100 women or 50 women in the same day or whatever, because they were trying to get him to reproduce as much as possible. Well, a lot of black men carry that mindset, and it ruins your life. A man that does not have sexual discipline is never going to be a successful man. If you need to stick your into every girl's vagina within a 100-mile radius, and you think that somehow that makes you more of a man, I dare to challenge that, because most men who live like that don't end up with happy or successful lives.
I do like everything he's saying right here. You can probably find a loophole to say that this is wrong information, but it is very true. STD rates are very high, and unfortunately, a lot of our women counterparts are having just as much spontaneous and casual sex as even a man would want to do. And there's some women out here who have more spontaneous and casual sex than men are, and they're outpacing men in the amount of casual sex partners that they have. So it also leaves you to think about women may be spreading diseases at just a faster rate in the casual dating world, as some may call it. So it could be just as bad on both sides now. But now I see that since we're becoming more sexually liberated, it's more embraced. Like hookup culture has become a status quo. It's also kind of strange. So let's jump to when Anton actually joins the live.
Hey brother, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing good. So welcome to the channel. It's good to finally meet you in person. So I assume that you have some things to say. So I'm gonna go ahead and just be quiet and give you the floor.
Well, first and foremost, let me say I appreciate you for letting me come on a platform and even being able to have this conversation, because I think it's important, because we just fundamentally disagree on a lot of different things. First, let me say that I remember all of the times where you were throwing shots, Boyce. You threw a lot of shots in a lot of the different red pill content spaces. You throw comments inside of Instagram posts that's specifically referencing me on videos that they repost to me. You throw ad hominem attacks like, oh man, he must be cross-eyed or stuff like that. And that's cool. I don't have any problems with that, because it's cool. We all content creators and people are going to get shots. But then you can't complain on the other side when people reference you, because you always playing victim, or you always trying to act like you don't understand why people have a problem with you. It's because you do things like that, but then you want to sit here and posture and say, well, we should all talk like men. You started it. You absolutely started it. And so when other people start to get shine, or when other people's message start to resonate with other men, then you throw shots instead of having a conversation with them. So I appreciate you for even allowing for me to come on a platform and have this conversation in the first place, because I think that, you need to check that. You do a lot of that when you talk about empowerment, but you always throw shots at different content creators. But then when it's time to have a conversation in the past, you say, well, I'm not paying attention to it. I don't really reference it. It's not a big deal. I think that's not right. That's not right, boys. And then you wonder why people.
You actually make.
Go ahead.
You made a great point. You really exposed me with that, because you're right. Sometimes I go in the land of petty. Like, I think, for example, and it really is, it is a type of hypocrisy that I've always had to confront, because it's like I had, and you're not the first person I've had that kind of disagreement with. Kwame Brown really had a problem. I mean, this dude made 12 videos or something in a row about me. I didn't watch any of them. So that part about ignoring it, I really do ignore it because I want to focus. But if you really look at it, I said his name first instead of, and I wasn't trying to insult him, but I said his name, he got offended, and that was the reaction. So you could be right. I've been accused of being a provocateur before. And so first off, I want to acknowledge that and even apologize for that. But then second of all,
I don't think it warrants an apology because we are content creators. The only thing that I'm saying is, if you dish it out, you just got to be willing to take it back. I say a lot of things because other people are content creators, and so I'm going to critique their position on different subjects. And then I notice that they get offended. But people say stuff about, I'm not tripping about it. It's just a part of the game. I understand that that's what comes with the territory. So I don't have any problem with you doing it. I just don't want you to be a victim. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, I don't see myself as a victim. I understand where you're coming from with that. I mean, I don't look at it as like, woe is me. I think it's more so, I'm thinking more so about the fact that it seems to me that we can't have this conversation about dating and relationships without it somehow sounding like we're getting clicks and views by bashing Black women. And I know that it's not all women, and I get it, but I don't see the same level of accountability being pushed toward the men as the women. And I believe it's because the men are the ones that are promoting the content and giving the clicks and views, and because you're affirming everything they believe, that nothing's their fault, that it's always the women this and women that. I see the same shit you see. I see the same community you see. I avoid the same women you might avoid, but I think that we have a community that needs healing and support, not one where we got millions of men that are just talking crazy about like single mothers. Like, what the fuck is wrong with like every single mother is not a hoe. Some of them literally got abandoned by some raggedy ass Negro who didn't handle his responsibility. We don't talk about that.
We do talk about it. We've been talking about it for the past 50 years. Guys by default have always been held accountable, largely for the things that they do because we don't have a safety net. But when we speak, of course there's going to be the anomaly. Of course there's going to be the woman who was widowed. Of course there's going to be a lot of different women that are in certain circumstances. But when we speak to the majority. We don't speak to the minority. And statistically speaking, the overwhelming majority of women are having babies with a small minority of men. Let's say, for example, that you hold every guy accountable, because contrary to popular belief, I'm much harder on guys than I am on women. I am absolutely, positively dedicated to building men. As a matter of fact, I'm an advocate for dick discipline. I don't advocate for guys to be out here spreading their seed. I'm a reflection of the thing that I advocate for. And I'll get into my family history in a little bit, but in a general sense, I'm much harder on men than I am on women. But we live in a society where women have advocated for equal. They've advocated for equal when it comes to what benefits them, but not advocating for equal when it comes to holding themselves accountable for the decisions that they make, right? So now that they have a platform, and we've let women have a platform for a long time, now that men are starting to speak to their issues, we have to call a spade a spade. And the reality is that I can hold every single guy accountable, and every single guy can clean up their mess in their life. But it only takes a percentage of 1% of men to then get with all of the women that then choose this exact same type of guy, have a child by him, but then they'll start to hold all men accountable for the idea that they chose wrong because they know that they should not be opening their legs and carrying before they marry. And so when we start to have these conversations, we have to have them holistically. You can't just say, okay, well, what about the guy? We always talk about the guy. We've been talking about the guy since the beginning of time. They won't even advocate for updating family court laws that were created at a time where women didn't even have rights to choose for themselves or be able to have the opportunities to have the jobs that they have. But they advocate against updating family court laws, but then advocate for making sure that they can choose and do what they want to do, but then advocate against being able to be held accountable for the decisions that they make. And that's ultimately creating so much chaos as far as the type of women that are then determining what's happening in our elections, the type of men that they're raising that ultimately is affecting what's happening in the laws that's happening in our schools. All of the things that we have as far as men being able to say, okay, well, I'm going to be held accountable for the fact that I chose this woman or I had children with this woman, which the overwhelming majority of single men don't have children out of wedlock. That's a statistical fact. More men don't have children out of wedlock versus single baby mamas. But then we advocate for cleaning up the community. I don't believe personally that the goal is to make sure that we remix families and remix the core of what it takes in order to be successful when it comes to creating families and coming together. I think that we need to go back and hit the reset button and start to say, okay, wait a minute. We shouldn't be having children out of wedlock instead of enabling bad behavior by saying, okay, well, wait a minute. Some guy should come up and clean up the mess of another guy. Because what about him? What about the guy that took care of his business, was on top of things, did not have children out of wedlock, made sure that he leveled up and took care of his business? If we care about him, why would we say, hey, you need to go and get with a woman that then messed up her life, instead of pairing him with a woman that's more closely or equally yoked with the direction of his life that he's going? Why should it be the responsibility of somebody that didn't create that situation, instead of holding a person accountable that did, like we do to men every day, since we live in a society where we've advocated for feminism and equality, especially equality with regard to decision and what you can choose to do as far as for a living? Why should guys have to bear that brunt instead of be held accountable, holding accountable the ones that's actually making the decisions to get pregnant?
Now I hear what you're saying. I mean, I think that if you want my take on feminism, I'm not really into any of what has happened in our community for the last 50 years, right? So you are correct in that the choices are being made in the wrong way. I think that where I want to kind of add to that and try to understand this better is why is it that we would say, for example, look at a child as somebody else's mess to clean up? I married a woman that had 3 kids, as a lot of people seem to know, and it wasn't because the father was a piece of shit. It's because they got a divorce for whatever reason. I work with the father to raise the kids. I love the kids. I consider children to be an asset. I love, I could have married. You and I both are guys who have a little bit of money. You know how it is. You got a little bit of money. You could pick the litter. I could have got a woman 25 years younger than me and had a newborn baby. I just didn't want to have a newborn baby. I like mentoring kids. These kids have helped me make millions of dollars because they helped me run my business. This is fun for me. So why is it that we would go out and tell men, don't be no step baby daddy. Don't be no, I think I used crash dummy or something like that. I honor those men. Let's seriously, I really have admiration for the men who say, you know what, I didn't make this mess, but it's my community. I'm gonna clean up. If I see a piece of trash in my neighborhood, I'm not gonna be like, well, that's not my trash. Somebody got to go pick this up. I'm not picking it up because it's not my responsibility. No, I think it's all of our responsibility, right? Because you are right. You what you said earlier, I agree with that 100%. That the studies show that women are attracted to the top 10% of men. And you got some of those men, that top 10% that fuck everything, impregnate everything, passing all the disease, all that, right? So that's got to be dealt with. But I don't necessarily always look at it all as just like, okay, all these women were just stupid. Sometimes they literally fall in love with the guy and they really think it's going to work out. And maybe their daddy nobody taught them how to discern between the two. I just think that attacking is not the best approach. I think that we can build without having a scapegoat. I feel like the single black mother is what's the scapegoat. It started with the Kevin Samuels thing when he realized how many views he was going to get. Remember, Kevin Samuels did content for years. Nobody paid attention. It wasn't until he told that poor lady that she's going to die alone, which she probably already knew that shit anyway. That was when he started doubling down on that. And I'm like, why you got to go tell people they're going to die alone? If they know they're going to die alone, they're going to die alone. Let them deal with that. It's not our job to be like, well, because you are a 35-year-old black woman and you whatever, you're going to die alone. Why would we even want to be known for that kind of thing?
She called in. What do you mean? She asked for the advice. She asked him for his insight. See, the part where you're wrong is that we don't acknowledge the fact that Kev had held men accountable for years. And he was much harder on men than he was on women. But see, we only want to acknowledge the part where people start getting offended because he started holding women accountable. See, your word choice is strategic, and I understand what you do, Boyce. You use attack instead of saying being held accountable. See, we don't use the word attack when we talk to men. We just say, man up, take care of business, take ownership and responsibility for what you did, and then keep going. But we don't use that word when we apply it to women that ask for the advice of Kevin Samuels. He didn't attack anybody. He told the truth. And so it's a difference between being a truth teller and somebody that's doing it for views, because he was compensated according to what it was, which I think that he should have been compensated and he should have been much more successful earlier. But because he was compensated and he was successful as a result of it, that's what then brings out the jealousy. That's what then brings out the haters. That's what then brings out the problem, because he wasn't a problem when he was given the exact same.
Don't start that right now, please. Like, you can do that later. It's already mad loud.
Advice even worse to men. But let's flip over for a second. I don't think these guys are heroes of the community. I think that these guys are enabling bad behavior. Because if a woman, and they say it regularly, can go out and do what she want to do, these college campuses are nothing but indoctrination camps. They are.
I agree with that, but I've said the same thing. Go ahead.
And they literally not only are indoctrination camps, but they're also a gateway into bad behavior for a lifetime of pain, meaning that they go out there, they slut it out, they get pregnant, they do what they want to do, and they even have a phase for it. They say, this is my whole phase. So instead of us holding women accountable and saying, hey, you shouldn't have a whole phase, but you should get married, because we already understand what the statistics are. You're less likely to go to jail. You're more likely to graduate college. You're less likely to need therapy. You're less likely to have problems. You're less likely to join gangs if you are raised in a two-parent household. Instead of us going back to the core of it and saying, hey, listen, I'm not going to enable your bad behavior by rewarding you with a good man that then should have been with his own family. Instead, I'm going to hold you accountable, and maybe you should choose better. As a matter of fact, you should probably go back and get with the person that you had children with in the first place, because if he was good enough to open your legs for, because kids still need their father. You just said out of your own mouth that you worked closely with the father of the children from the mother that she originally had kids with. So why don't we have conversations with men or with women and say, hey, then how come you won't go back with the person that actually had the children with? Because that's probably what's best for them in most situations. But I believe that you advocate for it because that's the life that you live. You chose it. And so how can you go against the very thing that you live and then tell guys to do anything different when that's the thing that you're doing? Because you would sound like a hypocrite. And I think that you also understand who your core audience is. I think that the majority of the people that support you, Boyce, are women, Black women. And they want to hear the narrative. They want to be sold. They want to be told a certain thing similar to how it is when we go to church. And so they support you because you don't go against them. And it's a strong possibility, the majority of them, based off of the statistics, that they are single mothers. And so I don't speak to the majority of people that want to hear what they want to hear. The only thing I care about is the truth. I'll let the chips fall where they may. And I'm not controlled by anybody. I don't care about the demographics. My audience or the people that resonate with me, they gonna find me. I don't pander to nobody. The only thing I do is I tell the truth. There's nothing that I say. There's nothing that you can reference that I say that is actually bad for the community, including how I live my life. Specifically, you reference my family. I'll give you a little bit of context. I was raised in a two-parent household, all 4 boys, me and my 3 brothers. My father was in our life until I was in my late 30s. That's when my father passed away. Then my mother became a widow when all of her children was out the house past 30 years old. And then eventually another guy, because she was working for me in one of my restaurants, came in, asked me, could he speak to my mother? And then eventually they wound up getting married after her children were already grown. So she was widowed, and then she wound up getting remarried when her children was grown. All 9 of my uncles on my mother's side married, never divorced. None of my brothers have never been divorced. I've been married for almost 20 years since I was 22 years old with the woman that I chose, the woman that I grew up with in high school. I met her in high school. She's in the other room right now. I have a daughter, right? My other uncle that's not deceased on my father's side, he's still married to the same woman. I don't come from broken households. I don't come from broken families. I chose the woman that I have. I have no scandals. I have no problems. I have no issues in my life. So when I speak, what happens is the reason why I live my life like an open book is because I want men to not only see an example of a person that's advocating for the thing that he lived for, but I'm a reflection of what I would want my daughter to marry. And so it's hard for women to then come after me and say, well, he's hurt or he's coming from a broken family, because I don't. And I think that it's guys like me that need to advocate for guys that's on the other side, because I don't have to go through it and they don't either. And I want to be a reflection of what I want those guys to be. But I believe that you advocate for it because you understand your audience. I don't think that you even really believe it. There's nowhere in the world that you can tell me, Boyce, that you would tell your daughter or your son to go and get with a ready-made family. I don't believe you would do it.
So, well, let me jump in on that. My audience is actually pretty mixed. It's about 60-40 women to men, though. So you are right about that. But there's a lot of men that follow me, and it's not. And the pandering part, I think that's debatable because when I go to your channel and I look at who's in there making comments, it's mostly men, right? And what I would almost say to you, brother, is just in terms of a thought, is I think there's a reason why men resonate with your message more than women, because I don't really hear the kind of intelligent, constructive advice that I think you're capable of when I see your commentary. I see a lot of stuff that could come off as woman bashing, right? Like that, just the little video that I shared on my Instagram about Umar hit it, so hit it. Then you threw that little thing, but Boyce didn't hit it. We know we ain't worried about Boyce. You're right, and you're right. Boyce ain't gonna hit it because Boyce was not out there.
Boyce, right. You know the difference between joking and then also putting the medicine inside of the candy. What part of that clip that you played was actually toxic or woman bashing?
I think the part that was toxic was this idea that that we are judging a woman's past much more harshly than we would judge a man's past. You said sit in the presence of kings. I think it's debatable about what makes a man a king. I know a lot of men who ain't got king-like qualities, who ain't kings for shit, who are walking around claiming. Seriously though,
what's the toxic part? What's the toxic?
Like when you hear guys talk about, well, women's standards are too high and they want this to. I'm like, well, maybe you just didn't make the fucking cut.
No,
like seriously, like a lot of guys don't make the cut and then run around
in the clip,
bitching and pissed off because the woman didn't want him. She had better options than you.
What in the clip did you play that I say that was woman bashing or toxic?
Okay, let's play the clip. How about we play the clip? Is that cool? All right, let's put the clip up and we can dissect it. That way we can look at it with fresh memory. And I gotta actually take a quick leak. So this will be your platform for a minute.
Now, they're gonna keep going, so you can feel free to watch the original video yourself. But there's two things. There's a few things I take away from this. Like, it seems like, all right, his mom got remarried, so it's like it's not like it's a complete no to marry a woman with kids. I guess it has stipulations on it. The kids got to be out the house. She has to be widowed. It doesn't seem like it's a permanent no. It has to come with certain conditions. And what kind of happened there at the end is that he kind of beat him with, like, whenever you hit someone with explain to me the exact details of a situation, it always throws someone off beat. So someone who's watching may feel like Anton got the momentum of the conversation is because he kind of used that tactic of, like, tell me exactly what I said, and then it kind of throws you off a course. And I don't think that he's on the side of, I think that some people just look at life in a different perspective than others. Like, yeah, if you don't want to take care of someone else's kids, then don't fucking do it. But if you see it as beneficial, like the more kids the merrier, they're helping me make money, I don't give two shits. Maybe he's money driven. Maybe he's seen it as it's less real responsibility for me having my own kids with you, and you already come with some. I can utilize them to get where I gotta be. Maybe that was his thought process, but you can't take it away from nobody what they think. And another thing that I do think is when he's talking about making these women, advising these women to get back with the dude that they originally had the baby from. A lot of people aren't really doing that. Like, they may be saying it in these ways, but the way that it comes off is everything, right? The tonality, the I would say the vibe behind this content is more like, you women are stupid. And that's kind of like steering away from the educational piece, because yes, I do advocate. I think that we have a problem where we don't try hard enough for our original families. Like, it's much easier to let go of the whole thing because we have this abundant mindset. Like, if you don't do it, somebody else will do it. And then as people start to grow older, they have all these kids, and next thing you know, they're looking back like, all these kids have different parents. It's all fucked up. I never worked on how to keep a relationship stable. These guys have no obligation to me because these are not actually their children, so they can up and leave me at any time with the children. Now I wish I would have did this differently, but we don't really fight hard enough to keep the original foundation intact, which I do believe that we should fight a little bit harder for. And a lot of these girls should fight a little bit harder, but since they're coming up on a city girl mindset where it's like, I'll push the baby out, I can do this by myself, and then they end up forgetting that the independent mindset made them give away so much of themselves to prove a point that it's not even a point worth proving, because raising any child by yourself is fucking misery. No matter what anybody tells you, it is fucking miserable. So they spend so much time trying to prove that they can do this shit by themselves that they give up everything that they could have had for their own life and act like that's what they wanted to do. Then they get mad at everybody else later. They start neglecting their kids. They start hating other people's relationships. Then they start using people in relationships. Then they can never find genuine love because they wish they never fucking did all this, but they wanted to prove a point that I'm so big and bad I could do this by myself. Or it's like, you're never actually going to go anywhere anyway, so I'm going to do this even though I don't really want to. But it's a weird game, and then all you do is end up losing in the end, and the cycle never changes. But yeah, with the Kevin Samuels thing, I'm not too sure if Kevin Samuels really got famous off bashing women. I'm not really too sure if Kevin Samuels got famous off of bashing women, because he has helped a lot of people. But sometimes when you see only these clips, if you never really spent time watching the hour-long, 2-hour-long live streams of how they go, he has not always was disrespecting women. Sometimes he gave women very, very good advice and just really held women accountable. Like there was a woman, for example, who left her however long of a marriage, at least 2-3 decades, and now she's having trouble finding relationships. And he's like, well, why did you leave the man? And it's usually over the most random reasons. It's like, well, you should have stayed where you were at. But sometimes the tone is everything, and I think a lot of this content is tonality. And people, I don't care what nobody says, when you're a content creator, you know how to do it so it works, it goes viral, and it's clickable. And I think that sometimes making it clickable takes away from the actual message. But yeah, that's my take on that whole thing. You let me know your thoughts.